Welcome to another episode of Navigating Your Unretired Life. Today, we're really honored to talk about a special book that is there by author Mary Clare called Full Ecology, Repairing Our Relationship with the Natural World. So, without further ado, Mary has invited some of her followers and friends to be a part of the discussion. We're going to talk to her about the book. So here we go. We are honored to have so many wonderful people online supporting Mary Clare, who is an amazing person. Let me just introduce you to her and some of her background. From Oregon, Texas, California, Georgia, Montana, and now Arizona, Mary M. Clare, PhD, brings a lifelong passion for the natural world together with her career as a social, cultural, and a developmental psychologist. As a fellow in the American Psychological Association with over 100 scholarly articles and 3 books, Mary most recently teamed up with Nature author Gary Ferguson, co-author of Full Ecology, Repairing Our Relationship with the Natural World, a book for taking part in our kinship with nature. So welcome, 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 Mary.
Well, thank you, Art, for inviting me, and thanks to everyone who's come to be of support. It's great to see all of your faces. Thanks for being here.
Well,
Yeah,
I am so excited that you're talking about a fuller ecology. I
yes, yes,
remember in college that there was a, a student friend of mine. He said, "Do you know about ecology yet?" I had not a clue yet, and that was
uh,
many years ago. And now that my understanding, thanks to people like you, it continues to get fuller and fuller. So tell me about your passion and tell me how you got involved with all this stuff.
well, I started school when I was 3 and I never left. I was really good at school. And so I was a professor, a graduate professor for 3 decades in Portland at Lewis and Clark College in the graduate school. And in that process, I had the opportunity to work in collaboration with teachers and school administrators, and healthcare professionals, and tribal leaders, and migrant farm workers. And then more recently, I've gotten to work in with the National Park Service. Back in my graduate school days, I had thousands of graduate school students. I figured out probably about 4,000, and they were all preparing to be community leaders. And my job was to help them understand that leadership is artistic, it's improvisation, that you never really know what's going to cross your threshold on any given day. And so that's kind of where I come from, is this devotion to liberal arts and this devotion to spreading the lens wide so that we can find elegant solutions to what's in front of us. So
Well,
then,
yeah. So let's stop for a
so
second. So
okay,
you at the same time, if you've done 30 years, you're not exactly a youngster, okay? You have become an elder. So
well, I hope so.
talk to me about that and the wisdom that you discovered in this.
Yeah, well, I hope I feel like if I'm very fortunate, and I would be very complimented by this, I am a fledgling elder. Came to understand from tribal leadership. Many different people said to me, "You need to understand that not all old people are elders. We honor our seniors, we honor the people with many years, but there are characteristics that set people apart who are elders. Elders have different kind of values around not needing to have attention coming in their direction anymore, not having to have people go, oh, you're so cool. Elders are going to come forward with what they have considered and thought to be the best solution for the most people, even if it's not in their best interest. So elders also are very interested in introspection and in the transformation that comes with the time of being older and going inside to say, okay, who am I really? And it's from that that we learn a great deal. And so I left my post early. I was not yet in elder years, but then I met this man who's here up in the folks attending where it says full ecology. And together we put together this idea of full ecology, the idea that brought together social science and conservation science to say, if we wish to act well on our love and care for the environment, then we must tend to our social ecologies, back to the ecology art, to the ecologies between us and the
Wow.
ecologies within us. And so this is where the natural world began uh, really encouraging me toward elderhood and into my own elder years. So that I can't claim that I ever technically retired. I was given emeritus status as a graduate professor, so that implies retirement. But I am thrilled to think about this unretirement. The natural world shows us what that looks like, by the way. And so full ecology is one thing I'm quite fascinated by. And the other thing is something I call inner elderhood, but we can get to that in a little bit.
Well, it's good that we're doing this over Zoom, and this is going to be uploaded to YouTube. And I think what do you think about doing this in the 21st century world? What are the newest possibilities for bringing the world together in a timely and effective way, Mary?
Well, really, quite immediately, we are all being called to listen to what I call our inner elder. Um, we've always had this aspect of our personality, but almost nobody has told us. Almost no one, I was never told. I had to discover it
Yes.
myself. And this aspect of our personality is with us from when we are very, very small. And it's that aspect that one example I use, and Isaac has heard me speak about this. One example I use is when you were little and you saw the adults doing something that was really harmful to each other, to another child. You may have seen a teacher doing something, and you knew inside of you that's really not okay. You knew there's something that can be done that's really more, that's better. And you probably didn't have any power to say anything. It's like almost 100% likely you didn't, but you knew. And that was your inner elder. And if someone were to point this out to children when they're very young, but I'm telling you, elders have inner elders and don't know it. Midlifers have inner
Yeah,
elders and
yeah,
don't know it. And
you know,
these help us in the
yes.
21st century. These help us. This helps us.
I was thinking that a lot of people, there's a different thing, but I think when I talk to a number of people, they might not say my inner elder, but they recognize some kind of voice from within. Okay.
Yes, historically, it's not like this is new.
No.
It's been called the still small voice. It's been called Buddha nature. It's been called Atman. It is something that is with each of us, but we don't have our attention, at least in the dominant culture here in the country that I live in, which is the United States. We don't have our attention drawn to this
That
in
no.
ways that are consistent enough to where we go, wow, this is a great resource. And here's the other thing, Art. It makes ageism irrelevant because
Yes.
who would be ageist when they have this inner elder that they can rely on as a companion when the going gets
Right.
tough? And the going is tough right now. One of the things that the inner elder helps with is, right, it's kind of the inner elder knows how to be in the eagle's perch. This is a metaphor I heard from a wise woman recently. And in the eagle's perch, what the perspective, my perspective, is that I can see the chaos. I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm not down in it. So I'm not getting wiped out by being in the middle of it all the time. Like, woo, woo, yo, yo, everything going
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
am above, I'm sitting in the eagle's perch. And if it comes to my attention that somebody down there really needs me in particular, I got energy because I haven't been down in that chaos. So that seems to me a classic the inner elder helps me see that.
That's a
The
nice
inner elder helps me know
analogy.
that.
Yes. You know that I just came to a with a faith-based event where we're talking about nonviolent communications, and one of the first steps uh, when you see a situation is to essentially pull back a little bit as an observer, and then to really check in with how it's triggering you or not, and then asking the right questions about what the needs, your needs and the needs of other people are in a compassionate way
Yeah.
that does a whole lot of good. I just feel like during our times, um, people for some reason in their life are wounded.
Mhm.
They are wounded by something, and they're acting out in ways that are self-destructive, not only to them but to the environment, to the planet.
Yes. Yes.
Chaos. Okay. And it's hard, but your heart has to go out for people like that. It's hard not to be angry and not to be, not to get violent yourself, but it's to sense what's really going on in the bigger picture. That's where the ego comes in. That's where the observation comes in. So this is wonderful, wonderful.
Well, so
So
one
tell
of the
me,
things, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, I was
I'm,
going to
I'm
say, so where do you go from here? What next for you, Mary?
I'm just really in the midst of working on this inner elderhood stuff. I'm finally coming to the end of preparing a book proposal, and of course, we'll see how that goes in these days. But the other thing that I'm really compelled by is how it is that the work that we've done in full ecology informs this inner elderhood thing, informs how all of us can move our way through particularly challenging times. And here are some things that are really striking me. It seems to me that the inner elder is very clear, and I can turn to that aspect of myself from the beginning. And over the time that I get older, there gets more and more clarity from the inner elder because there's more information for the inner elder. But the inner elder can tell me always who I really am. And one of the truths about who I really am, if we deeply investigate that, is that I am nature in nature. How could it be any other way? I am made of the same stardust. I am made of the same. Do you know that the universe that our planet is in is 13.8 billion years old? And then when it first came online, cosmologists are now understanding that it was more like a big breath than a big bang. And so this means, as they're seeing, that there was consciousness involved in that event. It wasn't just random mechanistic kind of events. There was consciousness in that. This is big for us to wrap our heads around. But the inner elder has always been saying, who you are, the truth of who you are, cannot be fully spoken. It belongs, you belong always. You are in form and having an embodied experience right now. But when that embodiment is finished, you're still in and of everything that you see. Now, one thing that Gary and I both say to people when we're in opportunities like this, Art, is to say, and don't believe a thing I say. Really important.
Well, let me
Check
ask
it out for yourself.
what
Check it
in
out for yourself.
chat, I think with Peggy Christian asked the question, what is the question? What is the question? And, in some ways, people can say, well, what is it that you're really talking about? Okay. What is it? I mean, there's another level here that is speaking to all of us in certain ways. And I'm sure that people in our audience are kind of going like in their own ways, kind of relating to this and relating to that.
Uh-huh.
And I think, one of the things, this program, I think something I see everybody here that looks like they're navigating their lives in some stage in their life. And so my show is called Navigating Your Unretired Life. Okay, which means that besides the regular time that you people say, hey, put you to the planes, or to the rocking chair, that you're still going on doing, you have a whole nother life. You're essentially, you're living longer, and you're actually expressing things, and you're finally with all this stuff, because I can see as a teacher, I used to teach, you're busy with this and that system and that system and those relationships, and sometimes that can feel kind of crippling, or it's kind of with that. And so now that you are free of this, and I guess you're a consultant and you're an author and a speaker, how does that feeling to you? I mean, I want you to share that with other people who might be going through these different phases in their life.
Well, one of the things that it feels like, honestly, today, right now, is it is not my identity anymore.
Mm,
You
hmm.
know, that I really think that what Connie Zweig writes about in her most recent book, that I am moving very much from identifying with role to identifying with soul.
Great book.
And
I was gonna say, wonder if, and we have a mutual friend, Rick Moody, who's going to be watching this, who introduced me to you, by the way. He said, you got to
yes,
meet Mary. Mary's cool, and you're cool. I want to hook you two up. And and he introduced me to Connie Zweig too.
yes, yeah. Well,
And
I
I,
really
yeah,
appreciate that
yeah,
distillation that she put on things. And I will say that in these roles that I do get to fill, consultant, not, from time
yeah.
to time, speaker from time to time, author, if I'm lucky, yeah. And but I also would say that the fundamental four orientations of full ecology are really at the basis of how I am in what you're referring to as unretirement. So that it's qualitatively different from being
Hmm.
in some kind of role that makes me somebody. So those four orientations, the first one, Art, is to stop, just to stop. Stop
Yes.
everything. Stop your thoughts. Stop. And so, Peggy, I think that the question really can emerge from these four orientations. And you're familiar with those, as I happen to know. So the first orientation is to stop, just stop everything. And you know how that feels when you stop. It is such a relief. Stop every next thought, just stop, even if just for a split second. Oh, it feels so good. And from being stopped, then you ask. This is different than asking too, because as agents of our lives, we have asked pointed questions, and we're going to figure this out, and we're going to be in control. But the natural world shows us, and the inner elder shows us, that you follow the stop with being being
Hmm.
open to the
Yeah.
information that is around you, being open like a tree is open. Right now, here in Tucson today, it's going to be in the low 90s. The trees are having to open up and respond to that in ways that are different than when it's in the 70s. But they are just the way that they ask is to open to the information that is there. And then they act. And that's the third orientation, to
Mm.
act. Stop, ask, act. But the act is no longer impulsive. We've got to fix this thing. We don't even know what it is, but we got to fix it, which we know from social science research that when you hop into action before you really know what's going on, 98% of the time you're answering the wrong question. You're wasting your time and
Yes.
everybody else's. So
You know,
then
I
the
had I had a I had a teacher back in the day. I was taking a political science class,
Mhm.
And this guy was the teacher was lecturing all these different things and talking about these systems. And he handed out the blue books and he said to us, he said, now you've been listening to me this whole quarter, this whole semester. What's a good question to ask
Mhm.
about this? And justify why you think that's a good one. That was the best test
That's a
that,
great test.
and
Yeah.
so I think it's the kind of questions that we are asking and then open to the answers from
Mhm.
nature, from our spiritual being, from the body of nature, from collective stuff coming from different places in the world and different people in the world, and then realizing that the processing of that is not just us, but it's a spiritual evolution, a conscious evolvement of history itself that we are taken up in
Yes,
as
so that then the action is sacred action. And the
exactly.
action is that's the third orientation. The fourth orientation is to inspire.
Yeah.
So stop, ask, act, inspire. But inspire is different too, because
I've
it
ne-
comes,
now that I've started to realize that, and I hope everybody in the audience is see, I realize
yeah,
now that I'm not never alone. Okay. That this inner elder that you call it, I call it my silent partner. I'm a business person. So
uh-huh,
I confer with my silent partner and say, what next? And then I'm really quiet. Okay. I might
yeah.
sleep on it. And
Hmm.
then something comes forward the next morning, like, yes, let's do this. Let's set up a meeting with Mary Claire and let's have her talk about some good stuff, that we can share with other good people in this group. So I just if we realize that there's a broader reality that we are a part of, we're not separate from that natural. We're all creatures of nature. Okay.
That's right.
And
And this
so
is a very comforting thing for many, many people.
yes,
Once we really slow down enough, and the inspiration part, Art, I know you have seen this. When you get to the end of a project and you're just living your life and you're just doing what you're jazzed about, you don't have to do anything to be inspiring. People are
no,
inspired. They want to know what's that guy got? I want some of that.
that's magnetic energy.
Yes,
That's because you're resonating energy. Now, down the road, we will realize that there are other planes of reality that we're only beginning to scratch the surface on. Okay. If you've ever gone into the room, there's some people, when they walk into the room, they just electrify you. They're resonating such positive energy that you're taken up in there. We used to say way back in the 80s, I like your vibes. Because people are saying, I don't know what it is about you, Miss Mary, but I sure do like your vibes. Your vibrations are just resonating at a really high part. And I just think that I'd like to have that come back and have, in greater depth of an understanding of that. It's not just woo woo. There's something
no,
going
it's not.
on.
And
Yeah.
this is the really kind of radical activist um, opportunity that we have right now. Let's say I'll put it out there, and again, I say you all don't believe me. You check it out for yourselves. But this is the way it goes. That the secret here is for each of us to become motivated to act from within
Yes.
instead of continuing to act based on the headlines, based on who's in charge, who we think we need
Yeah.
to,
Reacting,
adjust and
reacting,
read.
reacting.
And
Yeah.
yes, instead of being driven from without, we are in an opportunity to be motivated, to move ourselves, to be committed from within. And the fascinating thing about that is that when you go deeply within, it is so clear that you're connected with every other person and every
Yes.
other being and
Yes.
every other thing that you would not wish harm on anybody or anything. And so you're going to do what you can to care for
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
because that's your sovereignty. Your sovereignty is in the collective. And yet you get to say, from my inside out, I am going to love and care for you. I'm going to love and care for myself. I'm going to live, love, and care.
Well, that's a
That would
celebration of
sound,
life.
yes, it is. It is. Some people say that's all about privilege, and it may be to an extent that I have the privilege to be able to stand here and spend this time with all of you who have gathered here. It is a great privilege, but I will also say that it's a very responsible, it seems to me, a responsible use of privilege to stay in that eagle's perch, to not get caught in all the mayhem so that I have energy to be of substantive help when, for example, the woman I work with, who is the executive director of the biggest reproductive health care center in Montana, calls me and says, I need you. This is really bad because they're canceling all the federal grants. I have energy. I can help her
Yeah.
think
Yes.
because I haven't been all in the mess, in the headlines, in the
Well,
stuff. I've
you
been
said one thing I want to
desperate.
stop.
Okay.
You said I know I have privilege. What I realize is that we all have privilege.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Everyone. We don't think of that. Sometimes in our language we talk about underprivileged people or populations or races or anything like that. But the greater depth you start, there's this power that we all have that we can all access. This truth
Yeah.
of our true being that we can with our love and and looking at this and this divine intelligence. I'm noticing just when I walk outside and I'm seeing all these beautiful flowers, there's a whole lot of love involved in the expression of this intelligence that is has made us, that is breathing us, that is having us, navigate our lives right now and come up with solutions that are not only just really cool, but are really, really divine. So,
Mm.
I think that with faith and with hope and with resilience that we can make this even a way better world than even it is now. It's pretty cool, but
Yes.
there's more that we can do as we realize our human potential and our potential as a entity, as a system, as you were talking about, as a systemic nature, in
Yes.
alignment with natural laws and the laws of human nature. I think we're on at a pivotal point. I'm loving this.
Yeah, well, a divine intelligence, as it shows up in the natural world, in full ecology, we referred to loving disinterest, which is very
Yes.
much like the inner elder. The
Hmm.
inner elder is there throughout our lives, whether we notice it or not.
Yeah.
And it loves and cares for us throughout our lives, whether we notice or somebody turns our attention to it or not. And same with the natural world. The natural world is unspeakably generous to each of us. And it really, really doesn't care or notice whether we notice that or not.
It's
It
always
doesn't,
giving. And
it's
so
always giving and we
it's
are
always
always
getting so
receiving.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it's
it's a
our
matter of
opportunity. Hmm.
acceptance of our good and how comprehensive that good is, as long as we align with it and we express it in really good ways. I think this is an opportunity to kind of stop right here. I don't want to just go long, but thank you so much. This has been really, really a good conversation. I hope
Excellent.
that everybody has gotten out of this, that this conversation will continue. People, if you put this in the chat, and there could be some follow up here. I don't have time to go into a major discussion and all the questions and all that, but I think this is a good place to stop. What do you think?
Sounds fine. All right. Thank you. And thanks to each of you,
All
Isaac
right.
and Gary and Leah and Peggy and Mary, who it looked like had to leave. But thank you so much for
Well,
being with
great.
us.
Yes, thanks everybody for showing up. Thank you.
And
Okay,
thanks for the
bye.
opportunity, Art. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed the conversation here. If you'd like to get the book, you can look at the link below and you can get to the book that way. It's on Kindle and in print. So this is going to be a great way to repair our relationship with the natural world and to move forward as our unretired selves. Thank you so much.